Thank you all for joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Joining us now, Senator Jim Risch. Always great to have the senator on. Chairman of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, amongst many other honors the senator has. He loves to work, whether it's cattle here in Idaho or wrangling up the folks in Congress. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, the cattle are easier than the folks in Congress.
we can only imagine. Senator Risch, first and foremost, your thoughts. You've been on foreign relations. You've been on intelligence for quite some time, but taking over the chairmanship, an incredible responsibility, sir.
Well, it does, Kevin, and I'll just say I'm honored to do that. It's fortuitous for Idaho people because we have there's, of course, a lot of things that affect Idaho, but we have a particular item that's going to be right in the wheelhouse, and it's got to go through me one way or the other, and that's the Columbia River Treaty with Canada is expiring in 2024. The negotiations have already been underway for some time. We've already dodged a pretty sizable bullet on it, but at the end of the day, it's going to have to protect Idaho water. It isn't going anywhere because of the spot that I hold right now. So that's a good thing for Idaho people. Obviously, the stuff at the INL on the cybersecurity is very important, and that's something that's also on my radar screen. And the other thing is just overall, Idaho is a producer state. We produce ag, we produce high-tech products, and lots of other things. And you have to understand that 95% of all of our customers live outside the boundaries of the United States. So it's important that we have as good a relationship as we possibly can with other countries so that we can trade freely. We Republicans are free traders and believe that people do well when they can freely negotiate and swap goods. And that doesn't happen if you've got countries that are at odds with each other. So the objective, of course, is to promote America and Americans and keep our relationships as good as they can be.
Senator Risch joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Senator, before we get to the State of the Union, you're the chairman of Foreign Relations. Your thoughts on our country's relationship with Russia and China?
Well, a good question. That's going to be the focus really in the rest of the 21st century. I think when I first got here a decade ago, we were focused on mostly terrorist activities. Those things are still going on, and we've still got to be focused on them. But emerging is an obvious competition between great powers, like happened in 15, 16, 17, 18th centuries, where great powers competed with each other for land, for trade, and all kinds of other things. That's happening now. China, much more so than Russia, is a concern. Russia gets a lot of ink these days. Part of it's political because of the president. They keep trying to wrap that around him. But look, the Russians have to be dealt with. But they don't do like that. When you're dealing with the Chinese, it's real simple. Just hang on to your wallet, okay? You can figure it out real quickly where things are going when you're dealing with the Chinese. With the Russians, it's different. They don't have the same objectives that that a lot of other countries do, and what they think gives them standing on the world stage is anarchy, causing trouble. Anytime the United States is involved in something, you can assume that Russia's going to show up and be on the other side. It's just an acrimony that's there, and it's something that we have to deal with. I mean, virtually every time we have issues, they're on the other side. Now, we do have some things in common. Obviously, we have operated an international space station together. And terrorism is as important to them as it is to us. Indeed, most people forget that when they had the Boston Marathon bombings, the first people to warn us about it were the Russians. Some months before that, they had identified the two individuals as having terrorist tendencies, and notified the United States and gave them gave us what they had. It wasn't that the FBI actually engaged and investigated, went out and interviewed. They determined that although there was some stuff there in America, it wasn't enough to take action. In Russia, it would have been. Obviously, they just get a suspicion, they'll throw people in jail. That's not the way America works. But in any event, the Russians have to be dealt with. There is no question about that.
Senator Jim Risch joining us. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Senator, your thoughts on the State of the Union speech and where we're going on another possible shutdown. I know you, Senator Crapo, and the delegation working to avoid that.
Yeah, there's very few people, if any, back here that want to see another government shutdown. When I first got back here, it struck me as we fought these things that this is not a good deal. The government shouldn't cut down. I think most people know I'm pretty conservative. I want a much smaller government, a less taxing government, a less intrusive government, a less spending government. Having said that, we were also elected to govern, and there are critical services that have to be delivered. There are things that the country does for people that need to be done. People forget that there are real people involved in this, both on the receiving end of things that are necessary and also people who work for the government. The shutdowns just are not yet. We were elected to govern, not to not govern. And as much as I'd like to see a smaller government, I'd like to see that we don't have government shutdowns. As a result of that, I've been a co-sponsor of a bill since I got here to stop it, say that we ever got to a debt ceiling that we couldn't resolve, or we ever got to an appropriation stage that we couldn't resolve, that the government didn't shut down, that it went on with a continuing resolution. No, there was no more money spent. It just froze things until we got through the negotiations, and it just flat prohibited government shutdowns. Like, this is the greatest country in the world. We should not be shutting down. We should continue on, and we can argue over at what level we should continue on. But you can't have this this tumultuous up and down. It just is not good for anybody.
Senator Risch, are you still working 16 hours a day? We were there with you a few years ago, and it's always tough to keep up with you.
Well, it's, having taken this job on, I was chairman of the Small Business Committee before I was chairman of Foreign Relations, but that's comparing apples to oranges. I mean, I try to meet everybody that comes from Idaho. I try to spend at least a couple of minutes with them here. As you know, I also have my committee duties and meetings and that sort of thing. And then when it comes to requests from people from outside of Idaho, they take a second seat to people who come from Idaho. So that's where I have to limit it, because there's lots and lots of people. There's 200 countries in the world, and every one of them has a head of state, a secretary of state, a number two, and everything else that wants to come in and sit down and talk. And you just can't do it. I mean, you absolutely have to put some limits on the thing. And when you're doing that, of course, it's just like life. I mean, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Where's the problem? I mean, if we've got a problem somewhere, then you got to sit down and talk with the people. But if things are going well with them, unless it's a really important ally that just wants to touch bases, maintain the relationship, obviously you have to do that too. So it's challenging, to say the least. But we enjoy the work. We get through it, and Idaho's on my mind, number one.
Senator, two more quick questions here at KIDO Talk Radio. Your thoughts on working with the president? Obviously, he's counting on you in the Senate, along with Senator Crapo. We'll start with that one, and then a quick final follow-up, sir.
Sure. Look, I get along really well with the president. People say, oh, well, you must agree with him then all the time, and that's not the case at all. He and I have disagreements, and I talk with him regularly, but I don't take any disagreements public. He doesn't like that, and there's a lot of people that don't like it when if you have a disagreement with him, you go public with it. So I keep all the disagreements we have between he and I. We talk it out and get to a point where we accept where we are, and sometimes we're able to get to a point where we both agree or agree to not agree, but move on to the next issue. So, but these guys, there's a lot of them here that love to step up and smack it in the nose, and he doesn't. That does not. That really does not move you toward a better relationship, or for that matter, towards a resolution of the issue. So that's not the way I do business with him.
And Senator Risch, Governor Little now in office. Idaho really the envy of most states. We've got Republican dominance, but we have such a great relationship between the congressional delegation and the state delegation.
Yeah, that's true. Brad's a good friend of mine, has been for many, many years. I've known him since he was very young. His mother and father were both very good friends of mine, served in the Senate with his dad for many, many years. And Brad has spent all his life really getting ready for this job. I mean, he, not intentionally, but just by the things that he did, he was around it because of his dad's service. And then, of course, he went to the state Senate and spent quite a few years there, and then went on to be lieutenant governor. And he was, people always say, well, you want to be ready on day one. Well, this guy was ready on day one and long before that, actually. So I think he's going to do a great job, and I am proud to have him as governor and glad to work with him.
Well, Senator Risch, we're always happy to have you on. We understand you're very busy, and like you said, you always make time for us and everybody when they visit Washington or when you're driving around in your truck here in the Treasure Valley or throughout the state.
Always good to talk to you, Kevin. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, sir. Have a great day.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye. There we have it, Senator Risch joining us. Let's take some of your phone calls. Patriot Ray with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Thanks for your patience, sir.
No problem, Kevin. I would love to have asked him a couple of questions, but that's okay.
Oh, my bad.
No, that's all right. My one concern is every morning we wake up, we maybe flip on the news or go to the web, and we see all these negative comments about President Trump and what the Dems are planning on doing. And, I guess the thing that really frustrates me is that when Obama was president, not a flippin' thing was said about his apology tours from the Democrats or the Republicans. They just allowed him to say what he wanted to say and do what he wanted to do. He did executive orders after executive orders, and nobody said squat. And we've got all this Russian collusion things going on right now. And what about the collusion we absolutely know about? We know that Clinton and Obama were involved with the Russian uranium deals. They gave money back to Iran. They should never have done that. That money should have went in their coffers to help build a wall. There are so numerous things that we know about Pelosi and the lies that she's told, and Waters, and you've got Schumer and their smirky little attitudes when they're listening to the State of the Union. These things have got to change. And the thing that really frustrates me more than anything else, I've been a registered Republican all my life, and I'll tell you what, it's getting harder and harder to pull the lever for a Republican because all they do is lie to us and they do not support our president. We have very few who really fight for him and what he's trying to get done. Instead, they come up with their own reasons not to have it. So I'm getting sick and tired of what these Republicans are doing because they're doing squat. And the American people, the majority of the American people want to protect our borders and want to do what's right for the people in this country, and yet they're not supporting a president who wants to do the same. So thanks for my couple of minutes, Kevin. I appreciate you. You have a great day, and God bless.
God bless, Patriot Ray. Thank you very much. We go to Ben in Garden City. Ben, thank you for your patience. You're on KIDO Talk Radio.
Hi, Kevin.
Hey, Ben.
So first, I wanted to tell you thanks for your outspoken stand about abortion. I appreciate that. It's a nasty industry. They take these poor babies and actually sell the body parts for scientific research or whatever, and it's just it's a sick industry. So I appreciate your talking about that. On the flip side of that, I disagree with your views on marijuana and hemp. I think you're trying to get some special rights there the same way the liberals are with gun control. Making marijuana illegal, I don't think it is constitutional or that they have a right to do it, despite the fact that it is being abused and it will be abused by certain people. You know, the old courthouse up on Protest was, I don't know what that was, probably 3,000 square feet. And they had a sign in there, I remember, that said that when in Asia, China, when a child did something wrong, they didn't ask the child, they asked the parents. You know, and if we would train kids, we'd raise them to do the right thing, we wouldn't have this problem with marijuana. It's not the government, it's the parents, it's the people that need to make correct choices. So, you know, now we have the big courthouse down on Front Street, and you go in there and you see on their reader board case after case state against John Doe, and you see a few other cases, but it's mostly the state against so-and-so, and their prisons are full of people like that, and that could be changed. So maybe I have an idea that won't ever work, but I just don't think the state has the right to outlaw certain things, the right to grow what you want to grow, even if it's being abused. I just don't think they have that right. And once you give them that right, well, what other rights do they have? Gun control? Because it's the same mentality.
Ben, we can always agree to disagree, but I always love hearing what folks have to say and appreciate you giving us the time of day, brother.
You bet. Thank you.
Thank you. If you'd like to respond to Ben's comments on pot, on marijuana, on the hemp, 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Taking your phone calls about the issues that matter to you. And we would not be doing our jobs in reporting the news, the real news, with the real talk here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, if we didn't commend the President of the United States. Here you have the National Prayer Breakfast. Remember, didn't Obama blow this off several times? And the reason why we need to bring that up is everybody forgets. I believe Obama didn't go. And I'm sure somebody, the devious little libs, will correct me, but I'm just going to go with Obama didn't go. Here's Donald John Trump.
All children, born and unborn, are made in the holy image of God.
Didn't hear that from Obama.
We must build a culture that cherishes the dignity and sanctity of innocent human life.
There you have it. Traffic and weather together.
7's Eric Gebert.
And this just in, the latest presidential approval rating, 49%. Tea Party Bob joins us now, bleeping around on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Miller. You know, I want to go back to the socialism thing. Socialism has been a part of our government structure since FDR, who was probably the first president to introduce social programs in the 1900s. But let's look back in history at some of the social programs instituted. FDR introduced the Agricultural Adjustment Act that allowed the government to buy surplus food and tax the food process companies only so they could give the money back to the farmers. That was declared unconstitutional. He gave us Social Security in the Second New Deal, which was the first modern welfare system to protect the elderly, unemployed, and children. We also have Medicare, which, of course, became part of our Social Security program under President Johnson. So how did Johnson pay for Medicare? He borrowed the money from Social Security Fund. He also borrowed some of that money to pay for the Vietnam War. So if you look at this, everybody seems to borrow from the social programs. Reagan borrowed from Social Security. Bush borrowed from Social Security. And they gave us an IOU, which is never going to get paid back. You know, all of these programs were geared up to help people, but most of them did nothing but increase the national debt and cause higher taxes for everyone. Socialist programs don't work because they're run by the government, which is inefficient and wasteful. The government controls the purse strings, and we find more corruption in social programs than any others because they're taking care of the people who pay for their campaigns. Is it any different with the Medicaid expansion program that was sold to the people of Idaho as the best thing since sliced bread, but will eventually turn out to be a lot of burnt toast, with the taxpayers ponying up more taxes to pay for a program that will eventually bust our budget? My concern is not so much for the politicians like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but for the gullible people who elect them and believe that they're going to get something for nothing. This is the fallacy of socialism. They promise you one thing and deliver something very different. But once they have control of the people, the people have no recourse but to succumb to the government if they want to eat, have a roof over their heads, and get medical care. America was founded on freedom in everything we do. But once you allow the government to take control of your life, the party is over and so is your freedom. So when you hear the government tell you something is free, beware what it's going to cost you in the end. And a perfect example is Obamacare. Remember, nothing is for free, including our freedom. Everything has a cost. And we get the government we deserve because we vote these people into office. Thank you very much, Mr. Miller.
God bless Tea Party Bob, publisher of the Gem State Patriot. 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Blessed to be with you, Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, your proud home of Fox News on the radio to Capitol Hill. Jared Halpern joining us. Jared, good morning.
Good morning, Kevin.
All right, look, you love the politics like most people love sports. This has nothing to do with the topic, so I apologize in advance, sir.
All right, that's fine.
Fair enough. The book that you read in college, among many, Richard Ben Kramer, What It Takes, as we gear up for 2020,
Sure.
Would it ever be possible in the social media world we live in today to write anything near that brilliance?
Well, I think you can, but you have to do it like in real time, don't you? I mean, because the detail and stuff that book captures seems like is what you try and do now on social media, trying to sort of give the lay of the land and exactly what it's like. Listen, I think that obviously it would be a little bit different, but I would encourage writers to still try and use that kind of detail when they describe, what it's like on the bus, what it's like, behind the scenes of these big rallies. But no, I think obviously Twitter has made it harder to write something that's as compelling, months and years after the fact. Although, we've seen some success. Some of these books on the inside the White House and stuff still seem to do really well, and we still learn some new nuggets from it. So, maybe you still could.
Yeah, one more final thought on that book, sir. It, it was so much about the candidates, and okay, I have gone out like a dope and instinctively, emotionally bought some of these tell-alls, and sometimes it's more about the people that are writing the book than the actual details that we're craving.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I mean, that's why you write the book. Although I would point people to like Fear, the Woodward book, which is really, an account of what was happening during this very volatile time inside the White House. So, that type of reporting still very much exists. I think it's a difference between hearing it from, a journalist who's well sourced and maybe one of these insiders who's, writing a book once their time in the White House is over.
No, a very, very valid point. Jared Halpern joining us, Fox News Radio, KIDO Talk Radio. So, Jared, yesterday was a little heated in the House, and for the first time in a while, there was a hearing on guns.
Yeah, this is there's actually legislation that the House is working on. So the Judiciary Committee is the Committee of Jurisdiction. This is H.R. 8. It's essentially a universal background check bill. It would make for most gun purchases, including private purchases, background checks required at the federal level. That is something that Democrats have been advocating for a long time. They're going to try and get it through the House. Obviously, there are concerns from the other side over, the effectiveness of those types of laws. Some constitutional questions were raised as well about whether or not there could be some sort of database that could be created that the government would have access to, whether or not it's asking too much of gun buyers to have to take on the price of a background check and things like that. At any rate, that's really what this was about. And it did get heated at times, particularly when there was an interruption from a Parkland parent who rose and sort of, which shouldn't happen. You shouldn't, protest at these hearings. But at any rate, him and Matt Gaetz, a Republican from Florida, got into it when Gaetz sort of suggested that we don't need to be talking about gun control. We need a wall along the southern border.
Indeed, which is unusual, and I guess the congressman asked him to be removed.
Yeah, I mean, when you have these types of protests that you see, and obviously some are more visible than others, generally the police escort that person out. You're there as a guest, obviously, of the committee. You can't protest in Congress. You're not actually able to sit on the floor and hallways in the Capitol because it could be seen as a Senate protest. So, we see these protests from time to time at these hearings, whether they be, over foreign policy, domestic policy. It is more unusual, I think, to see a member of Congress engage with the protester. But, obviously the Second Amendment, gun control, these type of issues can raise passions.
Jared, as we move along, anything big this week? Are you personally guaranteeing we're going to avoid a shutdown?
I would never make such a guarantee. I think this will be, Pelosi and others have said that they want to start seeing language here from this conference committee by tomorrow, by the end of this week, because it will probably take a full week to try and get everything through Congress, both the House and Senate, to avoid a shutdown on the 15th. I've talked to some committee members yesterday who are expressing optimism about what they're able to craft. They think that they are making a lot of progress. There are still a lot of questions, though, about what President Trump will do once this conference committee files its report, gets some legislation going. If he comes out right away and rejects it, does the House and Senate still go through the process of trying to pass it, particularly the Senate? I think the House would the Senate. What remains to be seen, I think, how it's handled by the administration.
Anything else we should be looking out for this week, Jared? Okay. We lost Jared. We appreciate that. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio, 107.5 FM, 580 AM. And we go to Liberty Linda. Hello, Liberty Linda.
Good morning, Kevin. Government shutdowns. As far as I know, a bank will give them, without interest, what they would have been paid. They just have to prove that they work for the government. They just have to pay the loan back when they do get paid. I don't know why they are making such a big deal out of this. They are not out anything except a drive to the bank.
Wow. What would you say to them directly? You almost did, but go ahead and continue.
Of course we don't want to shut down. That's obvious. But what it's for, what's going on in our country today, it's just ridiculous. Nobody has mentioned that on the air anywhere, that, they don't have to pay any interest back. The bank will just give them the cash that they're not getting. And I haven't heard it anywhere. So, but it is a fact. And from what I understand, it's any bank. So, anyways, I wish somebody would bring that up sometime. Anyway, and then I don't believe a person should drive while smoking or if they have partaken marijuana. And I was just wondering, is there a test that can be taken if a police officer stops a person for that? Like they're driving all over the place or something? You know the test?
For dope?
Yes, besides looking on their faces and seeing that they've smoked something.
Besides looking at them and seeing if they have the purple haze?
Yeah, right. Anyway, I don't think that they should be partaking of marijuana while driving, because I think that's dangerous. So I'm against that. And how can they even say anything negative about our president? Kevin, after all the good he has done for our country and the people of this country, across the board, I don't care who you are, I believe the president should get an approval rating of at least like 98%. And yet, I didn't even understand the State of the Union, how a negative, let's say, some people looked in their faces. He's just been marvelous for our country. That's all I can say. And everyone knows it. Everything that he's done has been just absolutely marvelous. 98%, I'll go for that.
Well, we have a young man by the name of Chris who is going to correct you. He's listening in real time, saying Liberty Linda is not correct. You have to have direct deposit already set up with that bank, which you cannot do after the fact. when you're not getting paid. He's been there and tried that, so the banks aren't helping the workers.
I don't know all things. All I know is I have heard that they can do that. Now, if he knows something other than I know about that, then, please have him explain that to us. But as far as I know, that it is available to our government workers. So, yeah, let's hear what he has to say. I'd love to hear it.
That's what he just said, but yeah, we'll continue
Is
on.
he coming on?
No, he just texted me on the Facebook.
Oh, okay.
You're familiar with the Facebook, aren't you?
Yes. Well, let's have him come on and say it in person.
I hear you're working for. I hear you're working for the new Salt Lake Stallions of the AAF football team. That's why you've left us. Is that true?
No. I wouldn't mind being on a stallion. I wouldn't mind riding a horse, but no, I'm not doing that right now.
You're not working for the new football league that starts.
No. I actually finished my book and have that published, and that I haven't. There's one thing that they put in there that I think I would like to have taken out, so I may have it redone. But my book is out. And I'm extremely happy about that.
Well, what's it called?
The Spirit and the Sticker Patch, and it is by Liberty Linda, and it's everywhere. It's on Amazon. It's at Barnes & Noble. It's at Deseret and Siegel Books. Sometimes you may just have to have them order it. And it's about many of my visions. I've had many visions of the Book of Mormon, and I've had many visions like of Stonehenge, Elizabeth Smart, I knew, who was holding her captive. I saw it in the vision. I knew where she's being held. I didn't know the exact location, but I did get a picture of it in my mind, and it was exactly where she was being held. I knew how she was being held, that she was chained. And I sent that to the Salt Lake Police. They did nothing about it. And then, of course, her book came out, and it was exactly the vision I saw. So there's a lot of visions in my book.
Sure. Now, one more time, your book. What's it called again?
The Spirit and the Sticker Patch.
The Spirit and the Sticker Patch by Liberty Linda on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Deseret. We'll have you back, Liberty Linda. You get well. You're still in our prayers, all right?
Okay. Thank you. We love you, Kevin.
We love you. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Let's go to Doug, Mountain Home, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, Doug.
Hi, Kevin. Morning. Hey, on these if they have another government shutdown, the government employees that ain't getting paid, why can't they draw unemployment?
I think you have to be out there for a while, though, don't you? You have to.
No, I don't think so. You can, if you get, I mean, when I was cutting logs, falling timber, or any job, and I got laid off, you could go put in right. I mean, if you got laid off, you could go put in right that day. It takes you about a week, and there ain't no unemployment going on hardly at all in this country except for them government employees. And I sort of like it when they shut down because, like I said before, I mean, it's just me, but there's no grasshopper cops and no pine cone cops around. I go do what I want, like we used to be able to do before they started giving them guys all kinds of freaking law enforcement. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So, yeah, and that thing with Chuck Schumer that you had of him on the morning show or whatever that was, that guy's a puke. I'm sorry, but he is an absolute freaking camera ham puke. Communist. I just can't stand him. That's my feelings, and I wanted to say that. I hope everybody else on there heard it too, because I just can't stand him. So what are they going to do? They're going to take the state of Idaho to court on this truck that was caught with the hemp.
The hemp, yep. The hemp purveyors are going to take us to court.
Where was the truck from?
That's a good question. I think it was on its way to Colorado.
Well, I mean, where was it? Was it from Oregon?
I'm going to guess. I'll say Oregon.
Yeah, I hear you. Okay, well, have a good day. I don't see any reason why they can't go get unemployment. Maybe if they're contractors, maybe they can't, but somebody that's an employee, I don't know why why they couldn't go get drugs.
Well, we'll throw it out there and see what happens, Doug.
All right. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And we continue on rolling. Let's go to Ryan with Kevin Miller from Nampa on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Ryan.
Good morning, Kevin. How are you?
I am still employed and living the dream and hope to continue. And you?
I am the same.
All right.
I'm just calling. Had a gentleman on just a second ago asking why federal employees couldn't go on unemployment. And the answer is kind of twofold. It depends on the classification when they're let go. It depends on if they're furloughed or exempted. If they're furloughed, they can go on unemployment. But if they're exempted, for example, TSA, where they have to come in paid, they cannot be paid unemployment while in that status. So it really depends where and how the employee is let go.
Right. It would seem kind of tough if it's for 2 weeks, although 2 weeks without pay is rougher than anybody should go through. Then, it takes a while to get the unemployment and everything else, right?
That's correct as well. Yeah, it takes a little while. And as soon as you go out of a status, even if you haven't been paid yet, it changes. So you could go from a furlough or vice versa, and it would change the process entirely.
Well, Ryan, anything else you want to share with us today?
No, that was it. I appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks.
Have a great day. Thank you for listening, sir. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Still time to roll in before Glenn Beck. Let's go to Tess with Kevin Miller. Hello,
Good
Tess.
Morning. Hi. Hey, I'd like to just throw something out there for your consideration because of the issue between hemp and marijuana. And, when you hear people call in and use hemp and marijuana in the same sentence, there's the dirty bird link.
Hempy.
There are a lot of states that are raising hemp legally, especially industrial hemp. And it would be nice to actually, if you could speak to a hemp farmer, not a producer, not someone growing pot, but a lot of farmers, especially back in the Midwest, have been growing hemp for a long time. And let them tell you about what hemp really is. How's about that thought?
I've been debating hemp for over 20 years, so I know all about hemp. When I first got my start, there was a lady running for president. She called herself the hemp lady, and we used to debate back and forth. Me, I'm just a hardliner. I'm just one of those guys just saying no. And, you're probably more educated on the hemp than I am, but hemp leads to the drugs.
Well, let me tell you, you don't know this even though we've met in person.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but you want to stop the drugs? Get the insurance companies involved with it. They stop.
I don't like marijuana.
They stop everything in this country, the insurance companies. Go ahead, Tess.
Yeah, I don't like marijuana. I'm a retired CADC, which is I'm a retired drug alcohol counselor. And I have a law enforcement background, corrections and such, so I'm pretty familiar with it. And I think that it would be good to at least have that debate so people have a clear understanding, because a lot of people don't realize hemp is used in a tremendous amount of products, from facial products to healthcare to industrial, oils and such for machinery. It's not. I'll tell you, if you're going to eat those 2 poppy seed muffins on the way to work, you have a lot higher chance of being tested positive for opiates than if you were using CBD oil or using any other products, including hemp hearts. And I just want to let people know, boy, there's a lot of evidence-based research.
Now you hear that going on. Now you need to call in earlier, Tess, so we can have more time. I got to run.
All right. Thank you for letting me give me my spiel.
We love you. Take care, Tess.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.